Good morning. It's Friday and TGIF. My goodness me, it's been an exhilarating week. We've done some exciting things, but it's been exhausting. Wow, did I sleep last night? Well, I went to bed quite early, and I did wake up at about 4 o'clock and started to check the papers and look at the news and so on and so forth. That's fairly usual. But I didn't wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, which I quite often do. So exhausting it was, satisfying it was, but thank God it's Friday, because I really need the break of the weekend before we gather our skirts and start to tear in on next week's, once again, heady performances. Plenty of exciting things on tap. Okay, now what we do this morning, and who are we? Well, we're Mirador Television. You can see StreamYard up at the top there, and that's their logo. Is the people who supply us with our little online studio. The reason that our logo isn't there is because there is a hiccup between StreamYard and my bank, or our bank. It is stopping payment going through for us to continue with the super duper posh deluxe version of this app. So we're struggling along on the free version, would you believe? Saving a few bob, but it's certainly cutting our corns a little bit. Which actually brings me to the stupidity of us relying so much on computers. Because first of all, we can't actually connect our bank with the StreamYard bank. That doesn't work. Then when I try to unblock the facility for StreamYard to use my card to get paid, it won't unblock. And if I try to get somebody at the bank, I can't, because I get 65th in the bloody queue. So as a consequence, I am neutered. And then there is the news this morning that Lloyd's is going to cut back on another 200 or 300 branches around the country, which probably means that Lewis is going to lose its last bank. And it is not on. I think a license to perform in this country should be lifted from these banks. Not only that, but they are bucking the trend. For the sake of profit, they're bucking the trend, and we are going to be very, very sorry about it. Very sorry indeed. In the United States, they're going in the reverse direction. There's a little note there from Richard Barton to say that he's tied up at court and can't come and give us the benefit of his wit in in what goes on behind the barriers. But there you are. These things happen. Now, once again, I can't actually get the things to work on the internet. So what is the brave Lloyd's doing? Closing bloody branches all over the place. It is ridiculous. But as I was saying, they're going against the trend, because in the United States, first of all, high street banks in smaller towns are flourishing. ATMs are everywhere. And the young in the United States are rapidly going back to cash. They got fed up with doing everything by card. So what are we doing? We're going in exactly the opposite direction, posting profits of 2 billion, 3 billion a year for each bank, and taking away all the services that once made this country great. And then we start to cry because the service industry is taking a dip as people abandon the City of London and move off to one of the European financial centers or to America. You know, you'd think, wouldn't you? You'd think that somebody somewhere being paid the obscene amount of money that they are for being in charge would actually sit down and for all of 5 minutes, because that's all it takes me, all of 5 minutes would start to look at the financial sector and the use of computers. Of course we need computers, but to help us, not to operate on our behalf. Is to help us, to give us help in a very complex system. I grant you that. And we do need the help of computers, but we need the help of computers. We don't need to hand them over to them, everything over to them, which we're doing. And in this country, we're doing it, and a lot of other people aren't. And where does that leave us? If I may use the expression, sucking the hind tit. No wonder this country is in such dire straits. No wonder the economy is beginning to creak. We haven't got anybody who knows what the hell they're doing in any sector we do. And that goes to the civil service too. I mean, the civil service is just absolutely appalling that it turns out that a senior civil servant got rid of Liz Truss. It may be that we all wanted to get rid of Liz Truss, but that a civil servant should get involved in that decision was absolutely outrageous. We are a democracy. We operate in a democratic way, or we're supposed to. There are more things that are beginning to infringe at the edge. And why would I sit here and pontificate about this? Is because I am approximately a mile from where the whole trend towards putting the power back in the hands of the people started with the Battle of Lewes in 1264. And I'm sitting in the very, very hotel where Tom Paine articulated the rights of man, shaving away the divine right of kings and the power, total power of the monarchy. So I'm surrounded by all this stuff. So if anybody has got the right to say how much they're screwing it up in Westminster, and for that matter, all the way down in terms of politics. I never thought I would say it, but it's time for us to get rid of politicians. And that sounds tyrannical, doesn't it? It sounds like treason. Oh, dear, Keith, what are you saying? Well, I can't see any other way to stop this silly cycle in which we find ourselves, in which it seems that the incumbents are incapable and powerless to break out. Of course, it would help if some of them knew what it was like to live on the ground. They don't anymore. The last time that this town, this region, Lewes District, had an MP that took the time and bothered to walk amongst the people and find out what really was bothering them, was when Norman Baker was our MP. I don't share his political persuasion, but I have great admiration for the man and the way that he actually looked after his constituents. That was a member of Parliament. And we need another 300 or 400 of those. We haven't got them. I wouldn't, I'm a journalist, right? I deal on a daily basis in political matters. I wouldn't recognize our MP here if I bump into her on the street. Not at all. And it's really not on. So my experience of computers and what they don't do and what they cock up is so frustrating, making me so angry that I'm ready to rip it out of the wall and throw it into the street. Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Why would a computer be in a wall? Well, the ATM is a computer. The hole in the wall, as they're known, is a computer. The phone is a computer. Our dependency upon some of these pieces of equipment goes far beyond what we should be allowing ourselves to be dictated to by. That's when you don't have a script. You really have to worry about how you put your words together. But anyway, that's my rant for the morning. It is now 8:41. My goodness me. We've been going 10 minutes. It's 8:41. The temperature right now outside is 12 degrees and it is chilly. I'll tell you, standing at the bus stop this morning, I could feel that it was quite cool. And it isn't going to be quite as hot as predicted. It's only going to reach about 17 or 18 today, although the predictions for the rest of the weekend and the beginning of next week are still nudging 20. There is, when it says a fresh breeze, yes, there is a breeze, and it is cool. So it's not the sort of day to go out with shirt sleeves that are cut short, or shorts that are cut short, for that matter. Not that pleasant, really. Not that pleasant. And no sign of rain. No sign of rain at all. Okay. Let's take a look at what's being said in the papers, because it is absolute nonsense, right? Here we go with Metro. See you in court. What are we talking about here? We're talking about COVID. We're talking about whether Boris did or didn't have parties and lunches and things when the rest of us were denied that right. Well, I'm pissed off with him for doing that, because he obviously did, and he more or less has admitted he did. But there's a witch hunt that goes on and on and on and takes the attention and the focus of our MPs away from some of the big problems that we have, particularly with the economy, is farcical. They're gazing up their own backsides, and they can't get any further than that. What are we talking about? See you in court? A number of Friday's papers lead with the news the government is taking its own iCovid inquiry to judicial review after refusing to hand over a cache of messages sent between former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and 40 others in his area of influence during the pandemic. The headline in the Metro reads, "See you in court." Oh, my God, how has it got to this? How has it got to this? When it started with just a piece of ice cake and a half-empty bottle of champagne. And these are the people that are leading us. They're leading us. We've got a war on our hands. We've got a cost of living crisis. Inflation still isn't beaten. You name it. We've got 1,000 different things that are wrong that need attending to. And what are they doing? Still farting around with the COVID inquiry about a Christmas cake and a bit of champagne. It is actually disgraceful. And they are all calling for each other to resign. I think it's time that the public said, resign. All of you. Not the government, not the opposition, but both. All of you. And actually a good chunk of the civil service should go with you as well. And let's start out from scratch. That's what happened at the Battle of Lewes. The king, Henry III, was taking the money that he got from the barons for granted. He was looking after his relatives in Normandy. He was holding big parties. And eventually, it was a battle, the Battle of Lewes, in which Simon de Montfort, one of the barons whose money the king was abusing, said, "Enough is enough, and we're coming down to get you, unless you change your ways." And the king said, "Come and get me." So he did, and he did. I think that we're getting to that stage again, is somebody, somewhere, a de Montfort, a baron, should rise up and say to the, not in this case the king, but to say to the politicians in Westminster, "We're coming to get you." And when they say, "Come on, come and get us," is that we actually work out a strategy, the way that de Montfort did, to be able to defeat these idiots that are in charge and start a process of reform that makes Parliament much more sensitive and much more appropriate to the needs of our everyday life. That's what we need. See you in court. Jesus. The Cabinet Office versus COVID inquiry. Legal clash over secret WhatsApps. Oh, dear. Same thing. The Daily Mail. Ministers go to war with the judge over COVID and WhatsApps. Oh, I heard a little. I thought somebody was behind me. Same thing. But after the Cabinet Office triggers legal battle with the inquiry's chief, Boris says he'll hand over his messages directly. He says, "You can have my messages, but I'm not giving them to you. I'll give them to the inquiry. I'll give them to the chairman of the inquiry." And actually, I've got some sympathy with that, because the way that politicians use anything that falls into their hands, and there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that if you give anything to a politician that it stays secret or confidential. None whatsoever. They're the biggest bunch of charlatans that you'll ever come across. Absolutely bloody appalling. You can tell I'm upset this morning. I've used 3 swear words in as many minutes. The Times, battle over Johnson's messages. There we go again. The only other thing that it has on this front page is some photographs of Joe Biden, who tripped over a sandbag or something similar at a ceremony at the university yesterday and fell on his backside. He picked up and dusted down. But here he is, one of 3 potential candidates for the presidency. He is the incumbent. Donald Trump says he's not giving up, that he will actually run. And then apparently this fundamentalist DeSantis, who is considered even more dangerous than Trump, is running out of Florida. The world is in a mess, not just us. But then you see, we copy and emulate one another. What the politicians do in the States, we do here, or even vice versa. And what we do here, many a Commonwealth country apes. It copies. Mind you, there's a crackdown on Westminster sex pests amid fresh scandals. Oh dear! But that's something else that bothers me. Is things that 20 years ago, 30 years ago would be considered the norm, and that ladies would fight back if they had their bottoms pinched. Now is the merest even thought about pinching a bottom gets you into trouble. Yeah, look at me. I'm male, so I see it from the male point of view, and women are quite right in saying, "Keith, you idiot, you don't see it from our point of view." No, I don't, because I'm a man. There's nothing wrong with that. To be quite honest with you, the women don't see my point of view from theirs. They're women. And never the twain shall meet. Well, yes, we had better meet, otherwise we're in trouble, aren't we? With all this gender stuff that's floating around. But I remember that my daughter at 13, we took her to a holiday in Italy, and she had her bottom pinched on the beach, and decided she had actually come of age. That's how she saw it. And actually, she's a very, very well-adjusted, very successful lady. Having her bottom pinched on the beach by an Italian Lothario certainly didn't scar her for life. No, ma'am. No, sir. Oh, the Guardian. Where are we going? Ministers launched the court bid to defy the COVID inquiry. Same thing. The same thing. It's such a mess. Nobody understands it, including them. Ah, dear, 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 dear. Just for those of you who get worried about time, it's 8:50. It's 10 to 9. And outside it's cool. 11 degrees. Only 11 degrees. It's struggling this morning to get going. The Financial Times. Government seeks a legal block on the Johnson messages for COVID inquiry. Even the Financial Times, the august FT, has been dragged into this silly nonsense. Goodness gracious me. It really has. The Labour Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, oh, there's a lovely piece of work, accuses Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of engaging in a desperate attempt to withhold evidence. She adds that these latest smoke and mirror tactics serve only to undermine the COVID inquiry and that the public deserves answers. Yes, we deserve answers, ma'am. You're the opposition. We need a strong opposition, and I support you in that. But not to support attempts to, if you want these inquiries, that's fine, but tuck them away in a back room where honour can be satisfied and we can see that you are all concerned about the real issues of your constituents. Remember that word, constituent? Your constituents. Bloody hell. The Sun. Well, at least it has moved away from the Westminster debacle to the other debacle in television. Philip Schofield, an exclusive interview. I'm broken and ashamed, but I'm not a groomer, he says. There are other stories in the papers this morning about his wife being distraught, that he'd promised that this young man that he had an affair with was just a friend, and therefore broke his word to her. That all sorts of people at ITV apparently knew a little bit here and a little bit there and did nothing. And then some of them are accusing others of really get on with it. The Mirror. Holly, I've nothing to hide. Oh, well, we go to the other side. Holly Willoughby is another, I don't know how long she's been on this show, as I never watch it. I must confess, is she doesn't inspire me. And as somebody who is an arbiter of good broadcasters, doesn't matter where I am, I'm an arbiter of good broadcasters, has never impressed me. But if ITV says that she's good and pumps the money in, must be. See how wrong I can be. Anyway, I've got nothing to hide. She is set to return to hosting this morning from next Monday. She plans to cooperate fully with an external review of the controversy. And the Mirror reports, citing friends, the paper carries photos of Willoughby on holiday in Portugal and quotes a source saying she is keen to get back to work and has nothing to hide. Well, there we are. Isn't that wonderful? Nothing to hide. I got lots to hide. I don't know anybody in my particular circle of fine friends, acquaintances, or those who I know who haven't got somebody to hide. But not Holly. Oh, no. Pure as a driven snow. Well, thank God there's somebody in our community who's pure as a driven snow. There must be a right pain to live with. Oh, dear. Can you imagine living with somebody who is Miss Perfect or Mrs. Perfect? Or Mr. Perfect, for that matter. The Daily Telegraph, boat at the centre of a beach tragedy. This is one that I'm not totally au fait with yet. It appears that where was it? on Bournemouth. There's a cruiser that has been taking people for pleasure rides for God knows how long. But there's a 12-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy were in the water off Bournemouth Beach, and they died. And this boat had something to do with it. So it's been impounded, and the police are working on it to try to establish what led to the deaths. Is anybody who was culpable, who didn't do what they should have done, didn't follow any safety procedures, I would assume. That is tragic. It's absolutely tragic. And I always think of people who go off gaily to the beach to have a good time, and then suddenly they get turned around and they are facing tragedy because of something that happens while they are being happy and giggly, and it always seems to be very poignant. The Daily Express: the biggest house price fall in 14 years is about to happen. Now, that is something that everybody who owns a house or wants to sell a house or wants to buy a house has to be aware of. House prices dropped by 3.4% over the year to May. It's the largest fall in 14 years. The paper says the drop was caused by hikes in interest rates and the rising cost of living, adding that it has led to predictions that storm clouds are gathering for the property market. Well, throughout COVID, people were coming to Lewis and this area and buying at inflated prices, and the market was shooting up and up and up. Now, apparently, it's going to take a drop, a fall, and some people are going to catch a cold. I, at the time, said, buy and move ahead paying these outrageous prices with caution. The estate agents don't care. The better price they can get, the more money they make. But if it's going to end up in tragedy and misery, ultimately, then we are better off advising caution and making sure that people are very sure when they buy things that they can not only afford them at the time, but withstand any buffeting that's going to come in the market, because the property market has always been volatile, always will be. Now, the Daily Star, dear old the Daily Star, what it says is the cost of living crisis. Your chippy needs you. The Daily Star reports that half of Britain's fish and chip shops could go bust by 2025. But readers are told they can help by shoving just two extra portions down your gob, it says. The headline reads, your chippy needs you. Dear. And why not? Actually, it's now 2 minutes to 9 o'clock. We've been ranting a lot this morning. Now, just a reminder that the day is going to be reasonably sunny, but not terribly warm. It's not going to reach much more than 17 today. And at the moment, it's still only 11 and mostly cloudy, with the expectation yesterday that we were going to continue sunny. It is cool out there, so watch out as far as the weather is concerned. It will improve as the day goes by, and it looks like it will improve over the weekend. But for the moment, a bit chilly and not a very nice day. Shall we see if there is anything we need to know about? Let's see, local stuff. Let's see. Note self-advance, Sussex Live, breaking update after a boy, breaking news. A boy of 16 was stabbed in Sussex. What's the full story? Where did it happen? A teen is charged with attempted murder and 3 bailed after a boy 16 was stabbed in Brighton. It happened in Brighton. A teenager has been charged with attempted murder. The stabbing took place in Russell Square on Saturday afternoon. and a 16-year-old boy from Croydon was subsequently taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. He remains in a stable condition as of right now. That's it for the morning. That's it for Break an Egg. Glad you could be with me, and we will actually be back in half an hour with a look back in history, and then at 10 o'clock or thereabouts, we shall have with us Melissa Conti from New York to fill us in a little bit better on the Biden trip, the DeSantis surge, and whether, in fact, Mr. Donald Trump is making any headway in his attempt to regain the power of the White House. Let's say for the moment then, toodle pip.